Hello, and welcome back to Mammalian Anatomy at Keuka College. Today we're going to continue our lecture series on the central nervous system, chapter 13. And in this video, we're going to start our conversation about part 3, sensory and motor pathways. Here we're going to give a general introduction to sensory motor pathways. And in future videos, we're going to go into much more detail of these pathways and give specific examples. Okay. So in a previous video in chapter 12, we learned that neurons do not work in isolation. Rather, they're going to synapse together into complex pathways and relay information in a very organized manner. So in this video, we're going to kind of build upon that idea of neural integration and give unique examples to see how that neural integration works in a more complex way. So these pathways are going to connect the peripheral nervous system, the brain, and spinal cord. And really, these pathways are composed of synapsing neurons. And these synapsing neurons are going to relay information back and forth between the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. Specifically, information from the peripheral nervous system is going to come into the spinal cord and go to the brain, or the brain is going to send information through the spinal cord and then into the peripheral nervous system to cause motion. To be able to travel through the central nervous system, the axons of these neurons are going to travel through white matter. Remember, white matter is going to be composed of myelinated axons within the central nervous system. So a lot of this information is going to be passing through the white matter, especially through the spinal cord. These axons are not just going to be disorganized. Rather, axons are going to be bundled together based on the part of the body that they supply or the function that they perform. So there is very neat and tidy organization of these axons in the spinal cord. Excuse me. So, for example, all of the nerves that are going to be innervating the hand and leading to fine motor control, within the spinal cord, those axons are actually bundled together in a particular location. This is very helpful, especially clinically. If a person's spinal cord gets damaged, the symptoms of their body, so like if they have weakness in their hands or weakness in their feet, can give you a clue of what part of the spinal cord was damaged. So it's really important to understand these organizations in a clinical setting. So there are going to be some important features of pathways that we need to be familiar with. And when we go into specific pathways that we describe, we're going to highlight these key points for each pathway. The first thing to notice is that pathways, or the axons in those pathways, are going to cross over from one side of the central nervous system to another. And this crossing over is called decussation. Why is decussation important? Decussation is important because it explains the contralateral control that the brain has over the body. What does that mean? So the right side of the brain is actually going to process sensory information and initiate motor control over the left side of the body. So right brain controls the left side of the body, and vice versa. The left side of the brain is going to control the right side of the body. This is really important clinically. So for example, if a person has a stroke, you can actually use the symptoms of that stroke to determine which side of the brain the stroke is on. So if a person has weakness on the right side of their body, you know that the stroke occurred on the left side. Also, all of these pathways are going to have 2 or 3 neurons serially linked together. When we had our conversation about neural integration, we talked about 2 types of processing, serial versus parallel. Serial integration or serial processing is going to have one nerve synapsing with another, and that nerve synapsing with a third. So they're going to just synapse in a single file line, and information is just going to be passed from one neuron to the next to the next. This is going to be important because it can tell us that there is going to be specific responses to the movement of information through those neurons, and it's going to be a patterned response. All right, and most pathways are going to be organized spatially according to the region of the body that they supply. This goes back to what we talked about before, that the pathways that are responsible for controlling body movement of the arm or the hand, those are going to be organized in a specific region within the spinal cord, and different regions of the spinal cord are going to have different responsibilities and different information that they are carrying. Again, it's clinically important because we can use different symptoms to determine what area of the spinal cord is damaged. And all pathways are bilaterally symmetrical. So this means that one side of the spinal cord is actually going to mirror the other side of the spinal cord. And one side is going to control the right side of the body, and another side is going to control the left side of the body. But all of these kind of organized regions are going to be symmetrical and mirroring each other on each side of the spinal cord. There are 2 major classes of pathways, ascending pathways and descending pathways. Ascending pathways are going to carry information to the brain, so it's going to carry information from the peripheral nervous system up the spinal cord to the brain. And this will be responsible for carrying sensory information, and it'll help us interpret our internal and external environment. And they're going to travel through specific regions of the spinal cord called ascending tracts. Remember, tract is analogous to the word nerve. A tract is just a bundle of axons that are in the central nervous system. There are also descending tracts. Descending tracts, on the other hand, are going to carry motor information from the brain to the peripheral nervous system. So it's going to cause our body to move, and it will also activate glands and adipose tissue. Again, these are going to travel through specific regions called descending tracts. So these will go through kind of bundles of axons that are collected together in the spinal cord. In our next 2 videos, we're going to talk about ascending pathways and descending pathways. We'll be able to kind of compare and contrast ascending pathways and descending pathways and see their general makeup. And then we're going to give specific examples of ascending pathways and descending pathways to see what they do and to kind of illustrate the structure of these pathways. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day. Be good to yourselves. Bye-bye.